Brian Mahoney covers the Knicks for the Associated Press, has been with me many times over the years, and we welcome Brian to 104.5, the Team ESPN Radio. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Roger, and I've enjoyed all those times as well.
Likewise, partner. So what do you make of the opening night and the lopsided loss by this Knicks team to Cleveland?
I thought they were going to lose the game for a lot of reasons. One, they're playing, the NBA champions on the road in the situation it was with the ring ceremony, and two, quite honestly, the Knicks are not a team that's ready to play right now. When you look at Derrick Rose being out for almost the entire preseason and Noah missing a lot of the preseason, you just can't expect to go and have a team that's ready to play a team as good as Cleveland when you don't have that much time together. So, I think, like you say, some good things that have stayed in the game for a half. It was disappointing how bad the second half got for the Knicks. But, again, I think you kind of have to look at what the expectation should have been in that situation.
I mean, you look at Joakim Noah and you look at Courtney Lee, and a lot of people are saying, wow, they spent a lot of money on those guys. And I don't think there was no points put up on the board with those two guys. So, I mean, that's not going to be the norm here moving forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, with Noah, they don't expect to get much scoring from him. That's never been his situation anyway, and especially at this point in his career, it's going to be even less so. But Lee will have to give him something. At that position on the floor, you can't not get scoring from, your shooting guard, essentially. And, he'll play better. He's mostly there for his defense and his ability to be a glue guy, but you have to score too. And I think that was a, pretty disappointing start for him overall, for sure.
Brian, I thought Derrick Rose got to the rim a couple of times. I mean, he hit 17 points. I know his shooting percentage wasn't great, but all things considered, as you mentioned, really no preseason, played in one preseason game, spent a lot of time in California at the trial. From all things considered, I thought it wasn't a bad performance out of Derrick Rose.
Yeah, there was definitely some encouraging things. It's a bad break in a lot of ways. This is 2 years in a row for him where he actually wasn't injured with his knees or feet or legs, whatever, which would cause him so much problem, and he still couldn't play in the preseason. Now, last year he had the broken bone in his face, and then this year, obviously, the trial. So, when you've missed as much time as he is, you need repetition. You have to get rhythm by playing, and he just could not play. So the fact that he did show he can get to the rim, he did show some explosiveness, that was a very good sign for the Knicks. But as far as being able to run an offense and things like that, you can't really do that without being around the guys you're running it with. So, I think, again, one of those take the good with the bad, and they definitely did see some good at least.
Brian, you said on Twitter the Knicks are a playoff team. Vegas has them at under 500. Why do you believe that you'll see this? We will see starving Knicks fans will see this team in the postseason.
Yeah, I think obviously, Roger, a lot of things have to go right health-wise, but I do think if they do go well health-wise, the team is good enough. Obviously, Carmelo's still an explosive scorer. Porzingis is going to be a better player in year two. I do think Noah will improve the defense inside. I think if they've upgraded the backcourt in a lot of ways with Rose and then Jennings off the bench and Lee. So I do think they got a lot better. And they kind of hung in the race last year for half the season before things went bad. So I do think, and they upgraded the coaching. I think Jeff Hornacek is going to be, much improved over Derek Fisher, who was inexperienced as a coach. So, I do think they can do it. Certainly they have a lot of ability of things to go bad if they do get injured. But I think, again, if they don't, I think it's a playoff team.
Brian, who's the leader in that Knicks locker room that if things, get rough this year, which I'm sure they're going to have rough patches, who is going to be that alpha voice in that locker room to galvanize these New York Knicks?
Well, it has to be Carmelo, just based on how long he's been there and everything like that. He's by far the leader of the team. The one problem a little bit, he's never been a really vocal guy.
Right.
He's not, he likes to talk behind the scenes to guys. He's an encouraging teammate. He doesn't get on guys per se, but he's not a real take charge leadership guy where you can really see it on the floor and things of that nature. So I do think it would help them if they had another guy like that. A couple of years ago, they had some older voices that they won the division title. They had Kurt Thomas and Rasheed Wallace and Jason Kidd. They had a lot of older guys who took that role on. Again, it's Carmelo's role now. I think he does the best job he can with it, but maybe he's not the most natural guy for the way they maybe need it to be.
Brian, how do you think Hornacek is going to do as the head coach?
Well, I think he'll handle it pretty well. The one thing they needed to do by far is upgrade the offense. Phil Jackson's triangle just wasn't working with the personnel they had anymore. I think you saw, they pushed the ball a few times. They'll open it up. and they'll score more. They have to defend better, but I do think got to put some points on the board. I think Hornacek will do that. I think he's got a very easygoing nature. The players seem to like him and want to play for him. And then so, again, a lot of things still have to be kind of figured out there with such a new team. But I think he is a guy who, there's something they needed to improve, and they improved it.
The other storyline, Phil Jackson. What will become of Phil Jackson, Brian, when this season is over? I know he has a little opt-out. He could end up going back to Los Angeles. I mean, I know we have to see how this season plays out with this team, but what do you think the future is for Phil Jackson with the Knicks?
I think a lot of us feel like this will be the last year for Phil. And, full disclosure, he's never said anything to me or anyone else that makes us believe that, publicly on the record anyway. But, his life in a lot of ways is out there with his fiancée and his family and his kids and everything. And this is a hard job. And, one thing, if you can improve a team and maybe you can see you're a year away from winning, but they're not going to be close to winning a title this year. If he can get him stabilized and maybe they're a playoff team, maybe then he'd feel like his work is done. And, at his age, I just don't know that he'd want to keep doing it much longer than that. So it's something we'll all keep an eye on. But I think if you had to kind of, take a best guess, I think he would take the option to leave.
Brian, I heard you say in that last response, no one thinks the Knicks are actual title contender this year. So I view the Knicks as almost in this kind of in-between land, not competing for a championship, but maybe good enough to make the playoffs. What would qualify as a successful season this year for these New York Knicks?
Well, I think it's got to be a playoff team. And, I've had this debate with a lot of people through the years. So there's a lot of people who say, if you're not contending for a title, what's the point of being, a 7 or 8 seed, and you're better off playing for the lottery and getting young talent? In some cities I agree. I don't agree in New York. If they can make the playoffs, it fills the building. They make a lot of money. This is New York. You have to have some kind of excitement. And the last 2 years, there was none. And people were not going, and they were not relevant. They were taking them off TV. So if the Knicks can be an 8 seed and lose in the first round of Cleveland, even if they get swept, I still think that's what they need to do. I think they need to bring some excitement back, and you can't do that by rebuilding for 3-4 years in a row.
And would you agree, Brian, it'd be nice to get off again? We're so darn early. It's a second game of the season Saturday night, but to play well on the home court at the Garden against Memphis and get a victory and show those fans that this could be a very good season for the Knicks.
Yeah, I've been covering the Knicks now, I don't know what it is, 10, 12 years, but probably 8 or 9 of them, they've fallen behind by double digits in the first quarter of the home opener, and the fans start booing. They want to see something good right away. So hopefully for the Knicks' sake, after a couple days off, they'll have a good performance on Saturday night, and the fans right away will see that, okay, this team can be what we want them to be.
Brian Mahoney, Associated Press beat writer, covers the New York Knicks and does a great job. We'll be back in touch, Brian, as we move forward this season. But thanks for a few minutes on Big Board Sports.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Take care. Brian Mahoney.